just got back from an amazing RV trip, driving almost the entire Blue Ridge Parkway, from Asheville, North Carolina to Shenandoah National Park. And I gotta tell you, it far exceeded any of my expectations. So in this video, I want to share with you some of the highlights, the places we stayed, and just the beauty of the whole area. So come on along and let me show you this great adventure.
I don't wanna be giving too much away just yet. Don't wanna be spilling my guts to someone I just met.
The Blue Ridge Parkway runs through the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina and Virginia and links the Shenandoah and Great Smoky Mountain National Parks. The road itself is a national park, and at 469 miles long, it's our longest national park. But you won't find a pay station anywhere along the drive because it's free, and it's been called America's favorite drive. I can see why. It's uncrowded, has lots of twisty turns, incredible views, and in many places runs right along a ridgetop, dividing the west
Valley to our east
and east side of the Appalachians. Now, to help you find your way, on one side of the road are granite mile markers. They look like this and are about 2 feet tall. Mile 0 is at the north end, where Shenandoah meets the Blue Ridge Parkway, and they go all the way to mile 469 at the entrance to the Great Smoky Mountains. These mile markers are the key to finding your way along the Blue Ridge Parkway, to all the overlooks, hiking trails, and attractions. I'll leave a link in the descriptions below, which describe each one of the pull-offs, but I'll warn you, the markers are a bit inconsistent, sometimes skipping a mile or two, and often hard to spot, so keep that in mind. If you're driving north, the marker will be on your left. If you're driving south, on your right. We drove from south to north, starting just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Our first stop, the Visitor Center. The Asheville Visitor Center is a huge space and helps tell the history of how the Blue Ridge Parkway was built, much of it during the Depression of the 1930s. But it wasn't fully complete until 1987, when the Linnville Viaduct, the section you always see in the pictures, connected the north to the south. One of the best parts of the Visitor Center was finding out about any road closures, which there were a few, and getting our Blue Ridge Parkway map, which ended up being super useful because anytime we tried using Google or Apple Maps to our next campsite, it would take us off the parkway because it wasn't the quickest route. Not to mention, you've really got to zoom in to see the parkway on your phone. So the free Park Service map was much better, and honestly, you'll go through a lot of sections without cell service here, so just get used to using the paper map. After the Visitor Center, we stopped at the Folk Art Museum, which is a little over 2 miles north. This is a fun stop, especially on a rainy day like we had. Everything from quilts and furniture to sculpture and oil paintings, even craftsmen working on current projects. From here, we were headed further north, about 26 miles, to Mount Mitchell, the highest peak east of the Mississippi. Mount Mitchell is a UNESCO biosphere site, which means it's both a conservation and teaching area. The mountain is named after Elijah Mitchell, an educator and Presbyterian pastor who proved in 1826 that it was the highest peak in the U.S. at that time. It was a short uphill hike from the parking lot to the summit, all on a paved path, and the view was definitely worth the stop. From Mount Mitchell to our first night's campground at Linnville Falls,
Craggy Flats Tunnel,
was about another hour's drive. This was a nice little campground with lots of car campers, B-vans, and tow trailers. We'd made a reservation on recreation.gov, but I was happy to see several first-come, first-served sites.
Here's the cool thing. Some of the sites are reservable, they have an R on it, and some of the sites are just first come, first serve.
Most of the campsites on the Blue Ridge Parkway are non-electric, so you need to be able to go at least overnight without power. But each campground does have a common dump station with fresh water.
No water and electric at your site, but if you need water, you just come over here and fill up.
And of course, the best thing is, if you're over 62 and have your America the Beautiful Parks Pass, your campsite is just $15 a night. What do you think, Teddy? Come on in, Teddy. It's time for bed.
Oh, all right. Beautiful morning for making eggs on the grill.
Day 2, and we were up early for a hike to Linnville Falls. One of the great things we enjoyed about this area were all the hiking trails. Most of the hikes on the Blue Ridge Parkway in Shenandoah allow dogs on a leash, and there were plenty of dogs here, but still, I'd check at the ranger station or with the All Trails app. Just north of Linnville Falls is the most recognizable feature on the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Linnville Viaduct. You may have seen pictures of it like this on the internet. Unfortunately, on the day we were there, it was raining, and honestly, the best view of the viaduct is not from inside your car or RV, but from on top a rock at the north end. It was time for lunch, and we needed fuel, but there are no gas stations anywhere on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we headed into Boone, North Carolina, home of Appalachian State University. This is a cute little town with deep Appalachian roots. And soon we were back on the parkway and headed to our next night's campground.
Sure is.
Dough Park, or do you say Down Park?
I thought it was Doe because it's spelled D-O-U-G-H, but I was corrected that it's Downton, similar and rhyming with Downton.
Dowden. Dowdens.
Taking an evening stroll down the Blue Ridge Parkway.
The Blue Ridge Mountains are one of the most musical places on earth, and just across the Virginia border is the Blue Ridge Music Center. Mountain music has long been a tradition in the Bluegrass Mountains and traces its history back to the violin or fiddle from Northern Europe and the banjo from Africa. You'll hear it all the time around here, played on front porches, churches, dance halls, and corner jam sessions. At the Blue Ridge Music Center, there's a museum that documents the music's history to this region and is full of many interesting facts. There's also live music every day from noon until 3, performed by local musicians. On Sunday, there's a free concert from 2 to 4 at the outdoor amphitheater. And on Saturday nights, there are special ticketed performances with national bluegrass acts. About 50 minutes north of the Music Center is another iconic stop along the parkway, the Mabry Mill. Built in 1905 by Ed and Lizzie Mabry, it is one of the most visited sites along the parkway. It's called a working mill, but they've long since stopped grinding corn or cutting lumber. However, it is full of history, and it's interesting to see how the Mabrys built a business by harnessing the water power of a small stream. From Mabry Mill to our next campsite at Rocky Knob was only a short drive. When we pulled into the campground, our camp host said, "Hey, there's the Friday night jamboree up in Floyd tonight. You might want to go to that, as there's always a good band playing at the country store." So of course, we headed into town, and lucky for us, we got there about 5:15. Now, tickets for the Friday night jamboree go on sale at 5:30, and there was already a line outside, and they always sell out. So we bought our tickets, put our names on a couple of folding chairs, and found a pretty good Mexican place right around the corner with margaritas the size of my head. The lady at the country store said the first group up is a gospel act. So in my mind, I was thinking something like this. But not in Floyd, Virginia. They sounded more like this.
He loves me, he loves me, and I know that he loves you too.
Now, the second band was what they called a dance band. And as soon as they hit the stage, the dance floor was packed. I'm not sure what this dance was, somewhere between clogging and shuffling, but everyone had taps on their shoes. And for the first time in my life, I understood the meaning of put on your dancing shoes. Wow, talk about soaking up some of the local culture. We had a blast, and it's one of the things we love most about traveling the country in an RV. Learning about different cultures and ways of life, the food, and of course, all the history. If you're driving the Parkway, I'd definitely try to make a stop in Floyd, Virginia for the Friday Night Jamboree. Day 4, and we had a long travel day ahead of us, from Rocky Knob to Loft Mountain in Shenandoah National Park. Ideally, we would have stayed one more night on the Parkway, just 2.5 hours north at the beautiful Peaks of Otter Campground. But it was temporarily closed, so we needed to go almost 200 miles. Now, you may be thinking, 200 miles? What's the big deal? Well, when your route is the twisty-turny Blue Ridge Parkway, those 200 miles turn into a 6-hour drive. Fortunately, the weather and views were incredible. Driving the Parkway, we saw lots of motorcycle riders, and I think it'd be an incredible ride. But just so you know, you don't have to drive an RV to do this trip. A car or motorcycle would be just as good, as there are many places to stay and eat along the way. If you go to virtualblueridge.com, you'll find lots of information for driving by car or motorcycle, including lodging, restaurants, and all kinds of stuff. We finally arrived at the entrance to the Shenandoah National Park around 5 o'clock.
Hello! How are you? Good. We finally made it to Shenandoah. Well, welcome.
As soon as we entered the park, I was struck by how much it looked like all the big national parks out west. This is not by accident. In 1925, the director of the national parks, Stephen Mather, put out the call for a new national park on the East Coast that would be within a day's drive of millions. You'll see the similarities to Yellowstone or Yosemite in all the familiar brown and white woodcut signs, the great lodges, the nightly ranger programs, and of course, the junior ranger programs. Day 5 of our journey began with a hike on the Appalachian Trail.
Today's hike?
The Appalachian Trail.
Hike the Appalachian Trail right here.
The Appalachian Trail, or AT as most hikers call it, runs through Shenandoah National Park. And in our very first mile on the trail, we met Dwayne, who was hiking the AT from Georgia to Maine. He was happy to share his experiences with us, but he would not be the only AT hiker we met. And the one thing they all raved about were the blackberry milkshakes at the Loft Mountain Grill and Gift Shop.
What do you have there?
I have a blackberry milkshake that was recommended because blackberries are profuse around here.
Now, if you're out on the trails and you're not sure if that berry is a blackberry or a poisonous berry, you should try using the Seek app. We use it all the time. You take a picture of the plant and it tells you what it is. It's as easy as that.
This is called a wineberry.
Plus, it has a large database, so it works even if you don't have cell service. Skyline Drive runs down the center of Shenandoah National Park, and our next campground, Big Meadows, was right in the middle. It's a great place to explore the park from, as there's both a campground and a lodge. There's also
one gas station in all of Blue Ridge Parkway and Shenandoah Park.
plus laundry and hot showers.
$5 for 10 minutes.
And the nightly ranger show. Day 6 in Shenandoah, and it was time for another hike. Today's hike was the Stony Man Trail to a ridgetop overlooking Skyline Drive. It's an easy hike, only about 2 miles, but there are some sections that can be a bit confusing.
Here's the split of the loop.
So I'd always recommend you download the map to the All Trails app before you start hiking. That way, if you lose cell service, the GPS on your phone will keep you on the trail.
Here's where you need to have All Trails with you. So when our blue dot was right over here,
Yeah.
we were actually on the horse trail, and then we had to go across this little connector that's
Not really a trail.
not really a trail. And now we're back on the trail here, so once again, All Trails saves the day.
Yeah.
Another thing to do is note the trail's color marked on the trees.
These are called blazes, and when you're the person who puts those blazes there, you're a trailblazer.
So that's where it comes from.
Whoa.
One is for hiking. One means that you'll, I think, hook up with the Appalachian Trail.
Both Shenandoah and the Blue Ridge Parkway are great areas for hiking. But I think Shenandoah has a little more variety and the trails are closer together. So if you're thinking about taking this trip, I'll leave you with 2 tips. First, it doesn't matter whether you drive from south to north or north to south. They're equally as good. And second, if you only have a week to do this, you might not be able to get all of Shenandoah and the Blue Ridge Parkway in. Maybe split it up into 2 trips. No matter what, it's a great driving trip, and I think you should do it someday. So, safe travels to you, and I hope to see you out there on the road.